This book makes me so excited. Just look at that Russell T. Dalek. Engines of War delves straight into the Time War with a traditional style Doctor Who plot, dark themes and a lot of running from Daleks. The simplicity of the plot works mostly in the book's favour, giving time to develop the main characters' relationships while simultaneously keeping the plot moving forward at a good pace. As much as the middle section of the book felt a lot slower, the start and end acts were really exciting and kept the pages turning to find out what happens in the end. The author of this book is George Mann, who at this point is a very experienced writer. In terms of Doctor Who, however, he's previously written an 11th Doctor book, one of the stories in Tales of Trenzalore, and a few other bits and pieces here and there. He's a massive fan of Doctor Who and jumped at the chance to write Engines of War. A massive challenge Mann faced was that War Doctor hadn't really had much screen time, so having to write this character that we don't know an awful lot about into a 300-page novel was difficult to say the least. Alongside this, Engines of War was written in a very short space of time, yet it still achieved the Sunday Times bestseller, proving how skilled a writer Mann is with quickly capturing the imagination of fans. So the book starts out on what used to be a human colony called Moldox, which has now been invaded by the Daleks in the Time War. A girl called Cinder, who grew up in this war zone, is out doing her casual bit of Dalek hunting when the Doctor crash lands in front of her, saving her life from imminent extermination. They both meet and soon realise the Daleks are experimenting with a new type of weapon that can erase people from history entirely. These weapons draw off time energy found only in the Tantalus Spiral, which Moldox is in the middle of. The Tantalus Spiral is a big eye-shaped source of temporal energy in space, causing localised stars to die and be reborn in a matter of seconds. Fun fact, apparently the 4th and 8th Doctors enjoyed visiting this spot. The Daleks plan to harness this power on a large scale, creating a planet-sized weapon capable of wiping Gallifrey from history, thus winning the war. The Doctor and Cinder rush to the Time Lords to warn them of their impending doom, but the Time Lords decide to deploy a weapon which could easily destroy the Eye entirely, leading to the deaths of billions of humans living on the multiple colonies around the Tantalus Spiral. The Doctor and Cinder are forced to go on a mission to stop both the Time Lords and the Daleks committing mass murder, being hunted and chased by both parties. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book and raced through it to see what happens at the end, keeping me engaged and excited to read more throughout. The book is structured really well, having 3 clear defining parts. The first part being on Moldox, discovering the weapons the Daleks are using, the second seeking help from the Time Lords, and the third is the Doctor seeing the immense weapon the Daleks have built and inevitably saving the day from both the Time Lords and the Daleks. Now, the second part of the book was actually a little bit boring, as not a lot happens in this section, making it feel like it was just padding to bulk out the page numbers. However, it was definitely worth getting through this section to see the Doctor fight back against both Daleks and Time Lords, with an epic conclusion followed by a sombre last chapter. The weapon itself is insane and genuinely got me wondering what on earth the Doctor is going to do to stop it. The cannon was the size of 3 moons, or rather it was actually comprised of 3 moons, which had been lashed together in a massive latticework of struts and nodes and segmented by vast shimmering discs of metal. At the front, 3 spokes came together to form a massive tip from which she assumed the energy blast would be fired. Swarms of Daleks tended to it, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them, like worker ants crawling all over its surface. A stream of ruby-coloured light was being siphoned from the eye itself, channelled into 2 crackling antennae towards the rear of the weapon. She could see the business end of the gun, if it could even be called a gun. The ruby light was beginning to flicker as if it were building up for discharge, just like the smaller temporal weapons she'd seen the Daleks using on Moldox. This, then, was the weapon they would use to obliterate Gallifrey, and any other planets that stood in the way of their terrible ambition. I also like the way the Time Lords were written in this book, as they seem to have gone completely mad and are almost as bad as the Daleks by the end. This not only sits nicely with the canon of the show, but it gives the Doctor a massive dilemma to deal with, as it's obvious throughout the book that the Time Lords behaving in this immoral way heavily pains him. The Doctor, in my opinion, isn't quite right in this book, but considering George Mann didn't have much to work with due to John Hurt only portraying the character once on screen, I feel this character was captured relatively well. We know more about the War Doctor's tendencies from the audios now, but remember we didn't have these back when the book was written, so taking this into consideration, I was impressed by Mann's work. That being said, I feel the War Doctor is supposed to be slightly more brutal than how he's portrayed in this book. He's supposed to be more of a warrior and less like the other Doctors we've seen, yet I feel any Doctor thrust into this story would have made the same decisions he did. Cinder was a real gem of a character, however, and she was the perfect mix of dark yet likeable, but more importantly, believable. I won't ruin anything that happens in the book, but I felt how it ended with Cinder was the right way to finish this book, leading nicely into the Day of the Doctor. Now, I wouldn't properly be reviewing this book if I didn't speak about the Dalek variants and degradations. The degradations are a result of the Time Lord's failed attempt to rewrite history and re-engineer Dalek evolution, which backfired and created these monstrous Dalek variants. As the patrol grew closer, Cinder got a proper look at them. Two of the degradations were near identical and a kind that she'd seen many times before. A humanoid torso with reinforced glass chamber suspended beneath a normal Dalek head and eye stalk. 3 elongated panels on black metal arms flanked this central column to the sides and the rear. The panels were peppered with same half-globe sensors and standard Dalek casing, and from each side jutted energy weapons mounted on narrow sponsors. The limbless torso inside the glass chambers twitched nervously as the monstrous thing glided along, propelling themselves through the air on pumes of blue light. Finch had dubbed these ones gliders. I love the imagination here, working off a throwaway line the 10th Doctor said in The End of Time Part 2. There were a few Dalek variants, not only in colour but size and form, which I'll let you read yourselves, but trust me when I say none of them disappoint. This book also caters to both classic and new Who fans, giving massive role to the former President Barusa and the Death Zone playing a massive part in the second and third acts. Whether you're a new or a classic Who fan, you will definitely find something in this book, and even better if you're a fan of both, like myself. To summarise, the imagination in this book is undeniably genius. It got me as a hardcore fanboy exceptionally excited, and I'd recommend this book to everyone. Please buy this book. The only things that really take away from this book are the padding in the middle section and the War Doctor not feeling quite right, but I feel it didn't take away from my overall experience. I'm going to give Engines of War a 9 out of 10. The writer's passion bleeds off the pages of this dark and immersive read. Okay, so that's the end of the review. Thank you very much for watching this review of Engines of War. Please comment down below your thoughts on the book if you've read it. I love to discuss people's opinions in the comments, so your thoughts are more than welcome. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you very much.